Welcome back, everyone, to the Contested NBA podcast. I'm your co-host, Ethan Cope, here once again with Alex Toma.
What up? What
And
up?
today, we're just going to get right into it. So last podcast, we covered the trade deadline, all the big trades that went down, stuff like that. And today, we're going to cover the buyout market, which I think has been overlooked in a way because not much has happened. But I also read an article the other day that Alex was able to bring back up. Shout out to Alex. And then that explains why the buyout market is basically like so flawed. And we're going to get into that towards the end of the podcast. But to start, let's get right into it. So as you guys know, if you've been paying attention, the Lakers have signed Andre Drummond. He's out right now after losing a toenail, but I'm sure he'll be ready in like a week. And then the Nets have also signed Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge. So those are the three big buyout names. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can just start with Andre Drummond and what he brings to the Lakers if you want to go ahead.
Yeah. So for Andre Drummond, obviously the big thing with the Lakers this season was after losing Dwight and JaVale, they lost a, a good amount of what made them great last year, which was that size in the paint. And I think Andre Drummond adds some size, but one thing about him, you always hear how we'll see more as he plays, alongside LeBron and AD, but there's kind of like they say he's not a good defender, right? He doesn't play smart. He just puts up the big rebound numbers. And
Yeah.
while I think that rebounding and big body will help the Lakers, I am interested to see whether his defense is actually a problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
people say it is. We know offensively he has his limitations, especially at the free throw line, but he adds
Yeah.
a much needed big body for the Lakers. Marcus Gasol, I don't think he's been like terribly awful, but it's obvious he's taken a step back. And Trez, we know about Trez, like he'll give his hustle, but at the end of the day, he's like 6'7".
Yeah, he's
So
just too undersized to guard big men.
yeah, he's too undersized to guard big men, and he's not talented enough offensively to play the power forward position. But
Yeah,
so
no.
he's kind of stuck in the middle. But yeah, Andre Drummond adds some much needed size for them, and I'm curious to see how he looks alongside AD and LeBron if they ever come back. Because one thing with AD, they said he's still a long way to go, but there's like 20 games left. So
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them right now.
yeah,
Um, I feel like they're going to be healthy come playoff time. And like once playoff starts, we'll be able to see like them healthy, the Nets healthy, um, the Clippers healthy. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, Drummond is limited. He did get some praise from Frank Vogel and like during practice, he was talking about how like the defense was like more aggressive and had like a lot more steals. I don't know if that really means anything, but he was clearly saw something that he liked out of Drummond in practice. So I think also, like you said, making up for losing Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, you got probably like the best rebounder of this past like decade.
one
Um,
of
and yeah, I mean, I think his interior defense is pretty mediocre, like you said. He's just like limited, but I think he'll be like a really good piece to have next to Bron and AD once they're healthy, like you said.
sure.
Um, it's nothing much more really to it. I mean, if you watch basketball, you know what Andre Drummond does.
Yeah, but yeah,
He gets
I am
like
curious.
15 boards, 15 points per game, and that's kind of like
If you play
it.
fantasy basketball, he's one of the fantasy gods out there. So you look at that box
Yeah.
score and it's pretty crazy. But we'll see how he looks. I'm curious.
Yeah, definitely. It's sad that we didn't get to see him like actually have like a full debut because he
Right.
broke his toenail. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see because we
Yeah.
didn't really get a good look at it. But also, like, I wouldn't really like look too much into like any like drumming game until on or Anthony Davis and LeBron are back.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens when they're healthy. And then getting into the other ones, we got Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge to the Nets, like they needed any more firepower. um, I will say, um, it's kind of hard because I'm sure you saw it because I brought it up, but Blake Griffin a few days ago or this past week brought up how like everyone has been talking about how like trash and washed he's been for the past years. So
Yeah,
and then everyone overreacted to the Nets signing him. Um,
I thought
so
he was
I
pretty
mean,
much cooked, but
yeah, same thing with LaMarcus Aldridge, and Blake Griffin comes back and catches a fucking lob his first game. So clearly he wasn't washed. He just didn't have motivation to play in Detroit, which I guess I understand. But um, yeah, I mean, I think I like the LaMarcus Aldridge signing better than the Blake Griffin signing.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
I think LaMarcus Aldridge provides much better defense. If you guys watched him in his debut against the Hornets, you could really see like his basketball IQ is really high, and he plays really solid defense. He can hit a mid range, occasional three. I mean, he's just I don't know, throwing him in there. I think is just going to make the Nets that much better. Um, I also thought LaMarcus Aldridge was washed, but I don't know. I guess they just played us.
Scammers.
But
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to get into Blake Griffin,
Yeah, like you said though, I do like the Aldridge signing better than Blake Griffin because I think he's a better defender than Blake Griffin. He's bigger, he's longer, and he can protect the rim a bit better. And he also provides, just as much on offense, probably minus the facilitating because Blake's a very underrated passer in my
yeah,
opinion. But Aldridge, like you said, he'll hit mid ranges. He could still have these stretches where he goes nuts from the mid range, and he'll step out and hit the three here and there. And I honestly thought, he's was probably the if this Lamarcus Aldridge keeps showing up, I think it'd be the best buyout get on the market, more so than
hmm
Drummond and Blake Griffin. But regarding Blake Griffin, you brought it up. I mean, the jokes where he didn't dunk in 2 years. He gets a dunk in his first game with Brooklyn, but honestly, with Blake, I'm just happy to see Blake hoop again. I mean, obviously, me being a Clipper fan, Blake Griffin meant a lot to the franchise, so I'm just happy to see him get back in the groove and look healthy.
yeah. Um, I know as a Laker or not a Laker, as a Clipper fan, it's good to see. But yeah, I mean, the Nets just I don't know. I don't really know like what else to say about it. The Nets just, I mean, they got LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, they got Joe Harris having a career year. They have, um, I mean, they
Bruce
got
Brown
people.
showing up out of nowhere.
Yeah, they got people like Jeff Green.
Nick Claxton being a good. I
Yeah,
think this. I think it's his second year too, and he's really stepped up in his role.
yeah. And the biggest thing for the Nets after that Harden trade was just their depth, and they've clearly made up for that. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can say about it. It's
Yeah,
just
and Aldridge, like obviously after the trade, everyone was like, "Where's their 7 footer?" And not only did Claxton kind of develop into that new role, but like you said,
mhm,
Lamarcus, it looks like he still has a lot left in the tank. And like with Blake Griffin and Lamarcus, both these guys they don't even have to be above average. They could be like slightly below average. And that's
yeah.
fine when you have KD, Kyrie, and Harden if they're going to be healthy in the playoffs. And I think Blake, Lamarcus, DeAndre's not a good defender, but those are a lot of fouls to use up on AD. So I
Yeah.
think those are big bodies they could throw at him in a potential final series. That'll help for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know what else to say besides the Nets are just like stacked at this point.
That seriously, like if the Philly had got Kyle Lowry or something, then maybe I could see them being them. But with Katie, Harden, and Kyrie, they just have too much firepower. Like
Yeah.
poor Embiid, stuck with Simmons.
Stuck with Ben Simmons when they could have had James Harden.
Yeah, no, that's an old time
I'm just gonna
wonder.
assume that Daryl Morey like didn't dude, I just don't know. I feel like the Rockets what is his name for Titta or for
Yeah, Tillman for Tita, I think something like
yeah,
that.
for Tita. I feel like he's just like I don't know if Daryl Morey actually like wanted to keep Ben Simmons instead of like trade him for James Harden, then that's an L on his part, or maybe just the Rockets GM is just dumb and
Yeah.
decided Victor Oladipo would be better just
Yeah.
for him to get traded. Um, but yeah, there's also there's not really a deadline for the buyout, is there? I mean, probably like playoffs, right?
I don't. Yeah, there's not like a deadline for players to be bought out, but in order for like a player to be like playoff eligible, they have to be bought out by April 9th. So if they're bought out after, they can't sign with a team and play in the playoffs.
Okay, so that's in
We're-
4 days. So Friday would be
Yeah,
the buyout deadline. I
right.
think other buyout candidates we could see this week. You got Kelly Olynyk and Avery Bradley, who were just part of the Oladipo trade.
Good job,
Um,
Houston.
Kelly Olynyk is, I mean, he's like he can stretch the floor and space it, so I think he could be a help on really like any team.
As a
Um,
backup, stretch big.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got Avery Bradley, who is, I don't know, I guess like a 3-and-D guy,
Yeah.
who 3-and-D guard who plays really solid defense. You know, um, I mean, trying to think of like where they could go. Kelly Olynyk would probably be good on like maybe Philly. I'm trying to
Uh,
think of like contenders.
if he could play behind Dwight as a backup four instead of a stretch
Yeah.
five. Um, I know you brought up Avery Bradley. I think if Avery Bradley were to get bought out, I think the Bucks would be a good option for him
Yeah,
because
the Bucks also just signed Jeff Teague.
right, and Avery Bradley would be a much better backup guard option in my opinion. So
Oh,
like
definitely. Yeah.
I think they need like a little bit of help on like the guard rotation. Like obviously they have Drew and then Dante DiVincenzo, but they could probably use another more
Yeah.
reliable guard
After
in the
that, it's just like
rotation.
Jeff Teague,
Then I don't even know
like
who else.
Bryn Forbes, I think.
Yeah, like nah, yeah,
Two other names that are probably more likely to get bought out are Hassan Whiteside and Otto Porter. Otto Porter, I mean, he's a solid wing that can play some defense. Um,
open three.
yeah, I mean, he's a solid wing, kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where you could go, but like,
I think, but honestly, I think both LA teams could use like another wing for insurance.
yeah, I think the Celtics could use a wing.
Yeah,
I mean, they just got Evan Fournier, but he's kind of more like a
3 point
guard.
specialist guard. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and then Hassan Whiteside, which I think a lot of teams could use an extra big. Like you said, like the Lakers, not the Lakers.
yeah.
Lakers are
Now
too
with
many big.
Drummond, if
Yeah, not with
yeah, if,
Drummond now.
but any team that could use a backup big.
Yeah, he'll come in and probably get a few boards, maybe a block or two each night.
Yeah, maybe a Portland reunion with
Yeah, maybe.
Whiteside.
Yeah,
Nurkic is
especially
always
with
hurt.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And Ennis Cantor's not good on defense.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I would say obviously the winners of the buyout are the Nets and the Lakers. Um yeah, of course, the two
yeah.
best teams in each conference. But yeah, so
The two bigger markets in each conference too.
exactly, which will be our transition over into our main subject of this podcast. There was a article released by Sports Illustrated. I can't remember who wrote it again.
Howard Beck.
Howard Beck wrote that basically to like summarize that the buyout market is just unfair because you know when players are bought out, it's because they want to like go chase a championship and like they don't want to be stuck on that team that they're with right now. Aging vets like Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, the list goes on. And basically how bigger markets have like an unfair advantage over smaller market teams like Orlando or New Orleans or I don't know who else, um like OKC probably. um and the fact that like a team like the Nets can sign a guy like Drummond who is a two-time all-star, um has been
Yeah,
like has been the rebound champ like multiple times. I mean, the fact that they can just sign him for like a vet min, I would have
Yeah,
to
and
agree is kind of unfair.
that was the main like sentiment from the like anonymous executive that said that. He was like, these already like teams that have a more than capable roster already are able
Mhm.
to just sign these guys on the vet min, because like before Drummond was bought out, he was making like 20 million a year. So it's
Yeah.
like nearly impossible for a team like the Lakers or Nets to trade for him. And then obviously Blake Griffin making 35 million a year. No one is, that's impossible to trade for. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really like a solution to this. I mean, it's kind of been happening for a minute now. I mean, the buyout market is always like some older vet that wasn't traded at the deadline, so now they're just gonna buy him out and he's gonna go
Yeah.
ring chase to wherever. Yeah, I don't know if there's a solution to it. Like, yeah, it kind of sucks like at times. Like regarding the Nets, I didn't really like get too crazy about the Aldridge and Blake signings, but they're obviously not washed, so that
Yeah.
makes the Nets that much more like they're a little unfair. But the Drummond thing to the Lakers, that one was fine. That, you know, they needed a big, but
Mhm.
it does kind of give a pass to, you know, the bigger market teams that need an extra body and they don't have to put much use any assets to acquire um
Mhm.
another player to help them win. You know, they just sign them outright for a vet man while the
Yeah.
other team is still paying the player.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just like, I mean, you got the Lakers obviously needed a big man, like you said. So going to get Drummond was smart for them, but Drummond's obviously like, if we're talking about teams that need a big, like the Hornets need a big like bad.
Yeah.
And Andre Drummond's not going to go to Charlotte instead of LA to play with Anthony Davis and LeBron. So like I
Right.
do agree that um I do agree that the buyout market is kind of unfair for smaller market teams. Um, I mean, just in general, it's unfair, but
Yeah.
you know, those smaller market teams basically have like no chance. Um, I mean, even like the Heat were in contention for LaMarcus Aldridge, but like Brooklyn is just so much more appealing right now.
Right. Yeah. And I actually thought, you know, like the Heat were, there were reports like the Heat were like the number one option.
Yeah, the
And
Heat aren't even a small market; they're a big market
yeah,
team, but
and
the
it
Nets are
made,
just
yeah, and it made sense. Like, you know, Aldridge would go there and then start next to Bam Adebayo at the four with Jimmy and Oladipo, and there'd be another nice squad in the East. But then out
yeah,
of nowhere, you get the notification that Brooklyn just signed LaMarcus Aldridge. But and I guess another thing that makes it unfair at times, I don't know if the like executive said this, but like you said, like maybe a team like Charlotte wouldn't want to trade for Drummond, knowing that his preference is to get bought out and join the Lakers.
yeah.
You know, like I don't know, maybe a team wouldn't want to trade for someone that's not fully invested into their organization and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, but like you said, there's not really a solution for it. I mean, you would have to you would have to make a distinction on like what teams would have to give up more, but then at that point it kind of like doesn't even really make sense. Like
Yeah.
if you say like the Lakers would need to give up like a draft pick or something, and then it's kind of just like, okay, well,
Right. Like in the
like how do
NFL,
you
like when a player leaves in free agency, right, they'll get a comp pick like the next year.
yeah, but it applies to like I don't know. It's kind of like hard to like find a solution for that. Just because like what is the distinction going to be between like what team needs like to throw a pick in there and what team doesn't? You know, you can't just
Yeah.
say like, oh, the Lakers should throw a pick in there because they're better than the Hornets for Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you
it'd
can't
have to
really
be a
just
thing where there's a rule like anyone that maybe signs a buyout market player, they have to give up like their second round pick that next year.
yeah, or
Just
some
for
it's just something
example.
like that. But then even then, like, you know, I guess it could mix it up because maybe some teams won't be willing to give up that second round pick
Yeah.
depending on who the player is. But even then, like the Lakers this year would have been willing to go up a second round pick to get
Right.
Drummond. I mean, and then pay him like a vet min. So I don't know. It's kind of tough to come up with a solution for it.
Yeah. And one thing for this
Um,
buyout market, like since like really following the NBA since like 2011-ish, 2010-ish, at least in my memory, this like buyout market seems a bit more with bigger names than previous ones. Like guys
mhm,
like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus, and Drummond, while they're not like all stars at this moment, like they have a
not in their primes anymore.
yeah, they have a really good resume that like that's attached to their name. Like usually the biomarket dudes are like dudes we discussed, like Avery Bradley, like a vet that's not a
It's
big difference maker, but's on a team that's not contending, and a team just wants to do him a solid.
yeah, and like even like players like that, like Avery Bradley is a good piece on a championship team.
Right.
To have like a 3-and-D guard like that, or Hassan Whiteside is a good piece on like a playoff team to have as like a backup center who can play interior defense. But um, yeah, it's just kind of tough. There's not really a solution for it. Um, I'm sure like you could come up with something, but then I feel like at some point it just like wouldn't even make sense. Like I said,
Yeah, I guess that to me the like draft pick thing doesn't sound too bad. Like maybe Detroit gets like the Laker or the Nets second round pick next year for like having the Nets signing Blake after they bought him out. They get like some compensation for that, but I don't know.
yeah, but I mean, either way, I just feel like that wouldn't give lower market teams a fair chance either way, because then the lower market teams would also have to give up a second round pick. So I don't know if maybe like, you know, I guess like you throw the best offer out there, but then it ends up kind of just being like a trade. So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not really like a good solution for it, which sucks for, teams like Charlotte, or what about in the West? I don't know, New Orleans, who need a big or
Right.
someone to build around
Yeah.
Zion, for
And
God's
that's
sake.
just how it is for smaller market teams. Like
Yeah.
the Hornets are gonna have to worry about signing Lamelo long term. The Pelicans are gonna have to worry about signing Zion long term. While if they were like
Yeah.
on the Lakers or even like the Knicks, for example, like they're a bigger market team. Like if they drafted Zion, I'm sure Zion would have signed an extension there at
Yeah.
some point. So it's a little harder on these smaller market teams. I know we always talk about how, they just need to do better, but sometimes it's just as simple as like dudes rather play in LA than Charlotte.
Yeah. And, you know, um, I mean, like you said, I think Lamelo's like safe, but like you'll never know, because maybe Lamelo wants to go home and play in LA or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. Um, I mean, yeah, you can't really say like just do better, because there's like very few instances where teams go from like small market to big market like the Warriors did. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
It's
that's
true.
like, I mean, they drafted like one of the best point guards ever. They had one of the best shooting duo of all time on their team, while also acquiring a 2-time defensive player of the year and then signing Kevin Durant. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's
It's
like
not very likely.
it's not likely at all. It takes a lot of rebuilding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just kind of just, I mean, I don't know like what Adam Silver might come up with, or I mean, I doubt he even comes up with like any type of solution for it. But for lower market teams, it's just going to be like that, unfortunately. But um, like the guy said in the article, like I see where he's coming from for sure.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that it's that way. So yeah, I mean, it's just a bummer.
Yeah. Name of the game.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, this is a pretty quick podcast, I think, honestly.
Yeah, not a ton going out on the bio market, but Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Andre Drummond were pretty big names
Mhm.
to talk about. So
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't as much as like the past few years, maybe.
yeah,
I don't know if I just haven't been paying attention the past couple years, but
I think for
usually after
sure
the,
bigger names this year.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up today, guys. What is today? April 5th. So the buyout market is this Friday, April 9th, like Alex said.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe
I
something happens in the meantime.
yeah, I don't know if we're gonna do. I know I keep saying this like every podcast, how like about the solo podcast and stuff like that, but I think there's not really much like going on. We don't want to like bullshit our content. So this probably will be.
Well, there's one thing. Playoffs coming up soon. There's like 20 games left in the regular season. We're gonna have the play in. During the playoffs, we're for sure gonna do like round by round
Yeah, definitely.
analysis.
So
So
yeah, there will be more content that comes up, and then the off season will hit, and it'll be the same thing. But
yeah.
yeah, that's gonna do it for today. Thank you for tuning in. We're also available we're available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify at Contested NBA Podcast. If you just search it up, it should be the first thing that comes up. And if there's anything you disagree with us on, go ahead and contest it. I'll see you guys next time.
Peace.